Hello friends, welcome to Ocean Talks. If you don't know me, my name is Carlos. I'm a professional drone pilot and photographer based in Southern California. I've created this segment to discuss recent shark news, studies, and ocean topics that you suggest to me. Last week's fatal shark attack in Australia has dominated the news. As many of you probably already know, this incident occurred just offshore near Sydney in an area known as Bushan Point. I've received many messages and comments regarding this incident in the past few days, with many of you asking me my opinion on the matter. Quite frankly, I do not have enough information to speak about the matter in more detail other than what has been reported. Remember, I am not a shark expert. I'm an observer of sharks through my lens. My opinion is really irrelevant, but my aim is not to give you an opinion or tell you what to think, especially around wild animals in their own habitat. Of course, we all want to know why this shark was there and why this occurred. The answer to the first question is obvious. It was there because that's where it lives. But the second question of why is a bit more complicated. Here's what we know so far. 1, this was the first fatal attack in almost 60 years in the area. Yes, there have been incidents recorded in and around the area historically, but the fact of the matter is that it is extremely rare for a shark to attack a human, especially in a manner that it did. And yes, I did see the video. I wish I didn't see it, but so is social media and much of the media nowadays. It is absolutely devastating how it occurred, and it certainly stirs up more coverage in the press when it happens in the manner that it did. But again, a level perspective is important. On this channel, I've always said white sharks can be dangerous. However, statistics and observations overwhelmingly show that white sharks, a vast majority of the time, do not hunt humans. They just don't. But as humans who enter their domain, risk factors should be accounted for. Now, these factors are all part of an equation that can lead to an unfortunate encounter. Let's look at some of those in this case. The location. This is important. Where this occurred is a rocky point where currents meet from deeper waters and shallow rocky waters. That is evident. The area is normally a busy beach, but it should be noted that the attack itself occurred in a deep pocket of water more than 200 meters away from the beach itself and general beachgoers. This is something I've noticed that is left out of many media reports I've read regarding the incident. It's a pretty big factor when looking at the facts of the case. Equally important, I took some time to research the current water temperatures and weather cycle of the area. It turns out a current La Nina weather cycle has pushed masses of bait fish to the Sydney coastline. It may very likely be one of the several factors that led to this shark being in this specific area. La Nina brings lots of rain and lots of runoff, especially near estuaries like the one seen at this location. The result is an algae growth which attracts bait fish, which in turn attracts predatory fish, larger ones. The second factor that must be considered is tied to those bait fish. It must also be considered that this is a popular fishing area due to the abundance of large fish there, especially because masses of bait fish are attracting them to the area. I assume local fishermen know this. The video itself even shows a fisherman in it. Now, before I go further, no, I am not saying fishermen are to blame. So all you fishermen out there, relax. What I am doing is posing some logic to the question. If fishermen are attracted to an area for prize fish, large fish, then why wouldn't an apex fish predator of the sea not be attracted to the area as well? To get to the mystery of why a shark like this was there, we have to be transparent about the matter at hand. Fishing may have been part of the equation. It has been reported that local authorities and many folks in the general area are being quick to place the blame solely on fishermen. Saying so may be a bit premature and not fully informed. It should be noted that fishing has occurred here for the better part of 60 years without an incident like this. At the time of this recording, we do not know if chum was used in the area at the time of attack. Now, to place blame on fishing alone is not fair, but it is part of the equation. Should fishing be banned in the area? That's not for me to say. It is fair to say, however, that reactions by politicians can be more emotionally reactive rather than soundly thought through. Now, in retrospect, it can be said that this is a prime location for the possibility of a large shark due to several natural factors, and these factors may have been underscored greatly by human activity both in and around the water. We have a rocky point where access to deep water and larger fish is available. We have warmer water, and you have an element of bait in the water, a major fish stimulus. Third, the risk assumed by swimming in such an area cannot be ignored, no matter if there hasn't been an incident in decades, especially if there's bait nearby. Humans should be wise about their approach before and after. In fact, just days after this incident, local media has reported a man was escorted from the water in the same area by police. The other element is this. It's been widely reported that the swimmer was wearing a dark wetsuit at the time. It is known and most recently proven in an Australian study that white sharks do have a tendency to confuse humans with seals from underneath. Look at my description for the link to that study and how it was concluded. If the swimmer did indeed wear a dark-colored wetsuit, this must surely be considered as part of the equation, especially since this occurred near a rocky outpoint where seals are known to bask. As far as the water conditions, I can't speak to those as I am not qualified to make the assessment based on one viewing of the event. It's easy to say this after the fact, but would I swim in a location like this? Absolutely not, especially if folks are fishing nearby. All of the factors must be considered by anyone wanting to swim in such an area. But there is one question we know the answer to. Do sharks actively hunt humans? No, they don't. That's a fact. Millions of people have swam in that area since the last time a fatality occurred. If humans were actually on the menu, these types of incidents would happen daily, but they don't. Remember, it's about perspective and keeping a realistic approach to this. And please, there's no need to send me messages about how attacks are suppressed to help the tourism industry. That couldn't be further from the truth. It just isn't happening. I get many comments and messages regarding my filming of sharks and the possibility of filming a fatality along our coast here in Southern California. I'd be lying if I didn't say that it crossed my mind once in a while when I see a shark near a human. But let me state this for the record. I would never ever showcase footage outside investigative agencies or scientists should I record such an incident on our coast. I realize it's highly unlikely, and I do realize that the individual who filmed the incident in Australia likely shared it out of impulse, and that it may have been done before a moral judgment could have been made. But for the sake of this channel, if you're here to see a shark attack, that's not what this is about. That's not what you're going to see here. Hopefully by now you realize white sharks are around us, especially here in Southern California, and attacks are actually much more rare than I ever imagined. But again, let's be realistic about this approach and learn that risks come with all of our activities. Speaking of risks, my next story touches a little bit about those. If you haven't seen my recent video of a dead humpback whale along the California coast, I want to give you a little bit of context to it and display an example of risks taken by folks in the water. This humpback whale washed up ashore just north of Santa Barbara, California. The carcass remains there today, but it is significantly decomposed. There were a handful of great white sharks attracted to this area. One shark in particular is the largest I filmed off the California coast. I did film a handful of surfers in the water less than 100 yards from the carcass. That is a risk some folks decided to take on their own. Would I swim near a carcass? Absolutely not. Now, working in collaboration with California Fish and Game, I was able to file a formal shark report due to the proximity of these large sharks to both the shore and human activity. Shark warning signs were placed on the beach as a result. If you are at the beach, take these signs seriously, especially near a carcass. This whale was a 3 to 4 year old female humpback. While this is a young whale, it's not necessarily a juvenile. Its length was almost fully mature at 44 feet long. So what was the cause of death? According to the Channel Islands Cetacean Research Unit, it's tough to say exactly. Examinations and test samples collected by the research unit indicate that there were no obvious signs of trauma. In fact, all organ and tissue samples seemed healthy, and there were no signs of ingesting any foreign substances related to a recent oil slick in the area. So the mystery will remain a mystery. The obvious question is what happens along the California coast when a large mammal like this washes up on the shore? Well, it's somewhat of a tricky situation, depending on the location. Beach whales can either be left in place to decompose naturally, or sometimes donated to museums or other research institutions. This whale washed up on a beach within the California State Park system. As you can imagine, removing such a large carcass can be a challenge, both logistically and from a safety aspect. I spoke with a representative of the California State Parks, and they indicated the whale would be left to decompose on its own. This will create a nutrient-rich environment for the natural habitat. This is exactly what I am witnessing now. During my examination of the whale, I discovered this to be true, as there was plenty of life around it. If you come across a carcass, please remember, removing any tissue or bones is a federal offense that could result in jail time. In cases like this, where the cause of death is unknown, it's a good practice to keep your distance, as this could be a very dangerous health hazard. And it smells, trust me, it smells really bad. In my last episode, we talked about the amount of fatal shark attacks in 2021. Since then, the University of Florida's International Shark Attack File, the ISAF, released its annual report of shark attacks in 2021. So here's the official numbers. The number of attacks in 2021 went up 28% over the previous year. The official number of unprovoked attacks ended at 73 for 2021 as opposed to 57 in 2020. Fatalities were on par with a normal yearly trend though. 2021 saw 11 and 2020 saw 13. The rise in attacks was on par with the regular year after being down in 2020. The reason it was down? I can attest to having witnessed a possible reason myself here in Southern California. There were many more folks in the water in 2021 as opposed to 2020, which saw less folks at the beach due to the COVID-19 pandemic. For those of you who love maps, the ISAF website is loaded with information for anyone interested in the topic. I've included a link in the description below. Okay, so I'm going to digress a bit here. Who exactly is the ISAF? If you have an interest in sharks, then it's a group you should be familiar with. What do they do? In a nutshell, it is the only scientifically generated database that documents and monitors shark bites globally. They have a web of cooperating scientists worldwide who operate as regional observers. These observers collect data and investigate incidents. They've conducted over 6,000 individual investigations over the last 60 years. The reports submitted contain everything from water conditions, witness testimony, and a variety of data points that have been examined, but not all information is public. That, unfortunately, fans the flames of conspiracy theorists who somehow believe that withholding of certain data is to protect the tourism industry. That conspiracy couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, the reports also contain medical information as part of the investigation. Some of it can be gruesome. In most instances, medical information is HIPAA-protected information. This means sometimes bite info on victims and other data points cannot be shared. But why the need for keeping shark attack stats to begin with? To answer that question, we have to go all the way back to the 1950s and into the Cold War. Did you know that following World War II, scientists sought to weaponize sharks as bomb delivery systems? Yes, you heard that right. Sharks as weapons of war. We will take a dive into this project to see what it was all about and how the need to keep shark stats was vital to this program. Stay tuned next month as we look at this military project that seems to be straight out of a James Bond villain plot. If you enjoy this channel, please remember to let me know by liking and subscribing. Also, please give me a comment about topics to discuss in a future episode, and I'll quote your name and comment if I choose the topic. Also, I post daily shark stories on my Instagram, @TheMalibuArtist, so make sure and go visit me there as well. Next week, I'm releasing a recent shark video of white sharks cruising through California kelp beds. You won't want to miss that one. So, thanks for watching. Until next time, I hope you have a great week.